Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to our dear Muslim hands and Instagram viewers. As many of you know, and as you've been watching our lives over the last couple of days, our team is in Somalia conducting an emergency response using your donations, your beautiful donations of zakat and sadaqah to help save lives in the land of Somalia. Alhamdulillah, this morning we are joined with Yusuf Shah, who is currently on the ground in a food distribution, delivering your emergency aid. Let's connect with them and see how they're using your donations. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa Faisal. How are you doing? Well, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, how are you doing?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, we're good. Alhamdulillah, we've had a very productive morning here. Alhamdulillah, and again, we're just very grateful to our donors and our viewers on Instagram and across our social media for the tremendous amount of love and support they've shown to our brothers and sisters here in Somalia, in East Africa, the Horn of Africa, famine crisis that's happening here. Alhamdulillah, we've just done, this is day 4 now, and we've just done a very large distribution of emergency food packs. So 250, I mean, you can see, I don't know if you can see the signboard behind me, but there were 250 food parcels that were distributed here. We are in Dinale district, which is in the west of Mogadishu. It's around about 13 kilometers from the center. And there's just this, probably get an idea if I just kind of pan out of it. I'm just completely surrounded. I'm in the middle of this internally displaced people's camp where there are around about 500,000 people residing on this side. Yesterday, we did a similar food distribution to 250 families where, again, on that side of the camp, Kahde district, there's another 500,000. So combined in Mogadishu, there are at least 1 million internally displaced people. And that's just been massively accelerated by the current famine and drought crisis. Many of you will be aware for the last 3 years, there's been a lack of rain out here. And even now we're in a rainy season called Gu. And you can see some clouds above me. And there was actually, alhamdulillah, we were grateful to see it. Slightly earlier today, before the distribution, there was a slight bit of rain, but it's just nothing like what they require. These families have walked hundreds of kilometers away to get here. And sad to say, the vast majority of them are widows or divorcees or women traveling by themselves with their children. Like at least 80% of the internally displaced people in Somalia, which is around about 3 million, are women and children. And you can see that. I mean, everywhere we look around, you just don't see the menfolk. They're just not to be seen. There's lots of young kids, lots of our sisters, elderly as well. You know, really upsetting scenes, but it was a moment of joy, really, that we were able to distribute the zakat and sadaqah of our donors who have given those £100 emergency food parcels, which honestly is a lifeline out here. It's protecting and saving lives. And, you know, it's only £100, right? And I keep reminding myself that that £100 is giving enough food for a family of 6 to 7 people for an entire month. At a time, Faisal, to be very clear, we've heard this from one person after the other, they don't have any food in their homes. And when I say homes, this is what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see that. That's what they're living in. These just very tent-like, badly constructed shelters. And this is how they live every single day. This is how they are, and this is how they live. And it's very upsetting. And some of them actually, have been here since 2011, which was when the last massive famine and drought happened here in Somalia. And really, it's best to put us a moment to reflect and think. You know, Allah urges us to learn from history. And in 2011, where the drought was on a similar scale to this, and some say this is worse. In fact, they're saying it's worse in the last 40. It's the worst in the last 40 years. That back in 2011, 260,000 people died, and half of those, sadly, were children under the age of 6. And honestly, we've heard this from mothers. Honestly, firsthand, we've heard it from mothers that they said that we saw our livestock died because of the continued drought. And then we saw our young children starting to die. And at that point, they took a very difficult decision, which is that they decided that they have to leave. And that's what's happened. And over 1 million of them have headed to the capital. But in total, in Somalia, there's about 3 million. And it's very upsetting, very difficult, unfortunately, situations. But we just urge people who are watching to really open their hearts and be informed of what's happening in the Horn of Africa. You know, every 48 seconds, a person is dying here due to a lack of food and water. And we just really need people to come forward and support and help. This is what's required. And it is overwhelming, first, I'm not gonna lie. It really is overwhelming. It's just this sprawling, internally displaced people camp. It's yeah, the famine here, the drought here have had a devastating effect on the people here. Really, really, really difficult circumstances. And you know, they say that they're so grateful. They're making big du'as to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the love and support that have been shown from our donors. And these du'as, as you know, first, are very, very powerful. Very, very powerful and very much needed. And we're very grateful for their du'as as well. But honestly, they're so grateful. And you know, when we asked them, like, when was the last time you actually were given food provisions? Many of them said it was Ramadan. And now we're nearly 2 months after Ramadan. So that just gives you an idea. And they're literally, so we said that this question was like, well, how are you surviving? And they're just surviving on local handouts. You know, people showing a bit of mercy and generosity to them, and they're just trying to do whatever work they can to earn whatever little they can. And it's a very sad situation. Very sad situation, SubhanAllah.
You mentioned food parcels which were distributed today. What exactly do those food parcels contain?
Well, you just saw there a vehicle just leave. I'm just indicating that because just 2 families have just left behind me, and they've got with them those emergency food parcels. The emergency food parcels include 25 kgs of rice, 25 kgs of flour, 10 kgs of beans, and 3 liters of cooking oil. It's basically enough to keep those families have enough food for the next 1 month. And it just comes against a backdrop where, you know, people in Somalia here, over 6 million, some people have even estimated it as 7.1 million, or half the population. The population out here is about 16 million. Don't have, well, they don't simply know where their next meal's coming from. So it's tough, very tough. But, you know, with all of this, you know, as we know, like, our faith is such that we know that these people aren't the only ones being tested. We are being tested. You know, those who watch this, those who are, you know, Allah's blessed us with wealth. What are we going to do about it? And it really is incumbent upon us to step forward for our brothers and sisters in humanity and in faith. You know, Somalia has a deep history of Islam here. This is a very, very deep. I mean, the Sahaba came here. There's even a masjid, would you believe, Faisal, called Masjid al-Qiblatain in Somalia. And people know Masjid al-Qiblatain as the one being outside of Medina Manawara. But there's one even here. It's the 3rd oldest masjid in Africa, where actually the original Qibla was pointing towards Jerusalem and then was moved to Makkah al-Mukarramah. That just shows you how deep the history of Islam is here. It's from the first generation, the generation of the Sahaba themselves. And many will argue that actually Somalia itself is very much part of Abyssinia, Habasha, the original Habasha, which is, of course, as we spoke previously, that this is where the King Negus and Najashi, radiallahu anhu, who looked after and cared for the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum. And, you know, it's our honor to come here and to repay that. The need is great, really, really great. And I know people will say, but we've got our own finances to worry about. Honestly, and I was just saying to my colleagues earlier today, it feels like you're on a different planet. You know, when you come here and you go back to the West, you just think, how on earth is this the same planet? Like, it really doesn't even feel like the same planet. And yet it is, but they're just in different levels of poverty that, you know, we've been recently out in Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, even Lebanon, and even Poland. There is something about this one, though, that it's stark. And the size of it is just sprawling. I mean, I don't know if you can pick it up in the background, but this is what people are living in. We're right in the middle of a camp here. This is a designated area for distributions. You know, the secured it and made it safe. And on the other side, there's security situations here as well. So it's very difficult to work here. And, you know, we're very proud of our Muslim and Somali team that's been working here since 2011, even right through the civil wars and the security threats that are in and around in Somalia. Alhamdulillah, they've been determined to deliver your zakat and sadaqah on the ground. So, alhamdulillah, the team is established. It's simply this, Faisal. The more donations we can get in, the more we can expand the work. It's like it's just a clear equation. We can do more water trucking, bringing fresh water to the internally displaced people. We can do more food distributions, and even here, I don't know if I'm able to show you. This is a project that, inshallah, we're hoping to visit a few of these, but I'm just going to walk across here. So we're still within the camp here, but I'm actually heading. We noticed this as we were kind of driving in, so I'm just going to try and get this in the background. But it's these hope shops, and people might wonder what you're talking about. So these are hope shops, and basically they cost £500, and they set up a widow here in Somalia with the business. And I'm just gonna kind of try and capture this in the background, so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can pick it up. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah. So behind me there, that's a hope shop. And basically, so that £500 that donor gave, may Allah reward them. That set up, basically built that kiosk there, and provided all the goods within the shop for our sister, the widow there, and also business training. And Alhamdulillah, this shop has been here for a while, and it's wonderful to see. You know, we just drove in here. It's near the entrance of this distribution point. It's wonderful to see that Hope Shop is still very much running as a Sadaqah Jariyah on behalf of the donor who gave that, and that was £500. So that's a joy. So what you see is, you see a lot of suffering, but there's, you know, you can see the joy here as well from donors who have opened their hearts and have given, and inshallah, their reward is with their Lord. You know, we can only guesstimate what that could be, but you know, sometimes people say, oh, you exaggerate it when you say you're protecting and saving lives. Well, no, you really are. I mean, really, and I'm seeing people, like from the corner of my eye, I see things which, you know, I don't really want to describe, but you see kids who are just malnutrition. You can see them, they're down to the bones, and I'm not joking. And that's not like, oh, come on, no, I'm not exaggerating that. People just need to smell, you know, wake up and smell the coffee and look at what's happening in East Africa, and especially in Somalia, and you'll see that the people are in a terrible state. And that, what kind of personally angers me, is the fact that world's media is looking the other way. They've chosen not to cover what's happening in East Africa, though I saw some reports recently. So I think people are starting to realize that if we don't act soon, that we are going to be back at what happened in 2011. God forbid, you know, and it can't be the international community or ourselves are waiting to hear that thousands upon thousands of people are dying, and now we're going to act. The reality is, every 48 seconds, somebody is dying in East Africa because of the famine and the drought. So what is exactly we're waiting for? So, you know, my message would just be this, you know, just to share these posts, to raise awareness in the community, and to make a donation, whatever that is, whatever you can give, you know, whatever. But just to give you an idea, that £100 emergency food parcel lasts a month for a family of 6 to 7 individuals. You're giving them food at a time they've got little to no food. And that's not just me saying that. I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm surrounded by this camp. We walked into people's, it's so basic, Vessel. It's like they basically use those shelters just to kind of sleep in. And you know, like on average, there's about 6 or 7 of them. And again, I don't know if you can get an idea of the scale, but you know, the 6 to 7, it just fills a floor space. You know, it's because they're small. You know, and we were just meeting with some of the beneficiaries, and we couldn't actually go into their shelter because there wasn't enough space to even just go in there for all of us to go in there. So we conducted the interviews from outside because there's just no space. And you just see all, I mean, again, I don't know if you can see this, you just see these young little kids just out playing. But the other side of that is they're missing education. You know, we're seeing a lost generation out here as well. But it's that, or, you know, they lose their lives where they were. You know, the security situation and the drought situation there has been horrendous, and it's forced them into the capital here. And there's just so many of them. So there's a joy in that we are responding, but real pain in knowing that there's just so much that's required. And the other thing, you know, we talked about the water trucking, and that's a fantastic project as well. That's, you know, £300 provides water for 500 families, and that comes right into these camps. You know, they're not having to walk to go get it; it's coming right to them. And you know, we're doing some mega Sadaqah Jariyah projects as well. So if people are interested in that, again, you can go to the Muslim Hand website and you can see details of that. There's the Hope Shops, which you just saw, which is fantastic. And what an appropriate name, right? It genuinely brings hope, right? It gives them a, you know, breaks them out of the poverty cycle. This widow there, may Allah protect her and her family, is now earning a halal income and providing for her and her orphan children in a very respectable manner. And you know what was interesting? She wasn't part of the distribution. Why? Because she's got her income, she has an income. And I just heard that from the 250 families that we supported this morning here, they were newly arrived. And that's the other thing. You know, the UN reports are saying that just this year alone, 770,000 more people have been displaced in Somalia. Meaning, so before somebody says things are getting better, far from it, it's getting worse. And like I said, we're in a rainy season. I don't know if you can see, you can pick up some clouds above me, right? Yeah. But the problem with that is, we're in this season called Gu, which is a rainy season from April to June. But the amount of rain that's come here is very little, Faisal. So even when there was a slight shower of rain earlier today before the distribution, which we were very grateful to see, it kind of ended soon as it kind of started. I think it was about 5-10 minutes, and that was it. That is not enough for to keep these people alive. And what's happened really, what's the effect of that is livestock has died in their rural areas. And then worse than that, and I'm not making this up, 3 million animals have died in 1 year in Somalia. That just gives you an idea of how bad it is. And included in that, we don't even know the number of young children that have died, but we just from speaking to people, they're telling us, you know, that their young children have died before, and that kind of was the trigger point to say, we've got to get out.
Exactly.
Enough. You know, when the animals were dying, it was like, okay, that by the way, that is a massive loss of income, to say the least. The vast majority of the Somalians here are reliant on their livestock. They're known for this. I learned something the other day. I didn't even know this, that actually it's Somalia that exports its livestock to Saudi Arabia for the Hajj for Hajj. I didn't know that. Like, so those animals, and so obviously with COVID over the last 2 years, they saw a massive dent in their income because those animals were not needed in Saudi Arabia. Obviously this year, inshallah, it's about 1 million Hajj. But again, that's from where they would normally export 2.5 to 3 million animals to Saudi Arabia for the Hajj, which of course will be reduced to 1 million. But alhamdulillah, so better than the last 2 years. But they're very much reliant on their livestock, their agro pastoralists, which basically means they have farmland and animals. But the problem with that is because of the drought, the animals have died. 3 million of them in 1 year. And this is, you know, like, without getting too emotional about the point, we've got a nightmare on our hands out here. For us as Muslims, this is an opportunity to help, right? And I was just saying earlier, you know, and we said this even on TV appeals, when the Prophet ﷺ entered Medina Munawwara, the opening advice was, Ya ayyuhan nas afshu salama bainakum, O people, spread peace amongst yourself, wa at'imu ta'am, and feed people. That's what we need. We need our donor base more than ever before to step forward, show their love for our brothers and sisters in Somalia, and to feed them. You know, to give them those £100 emergency food packs, the water trucks for £300, or whatever amount they can give, whatever they can afford to give, but don't turn away and not give. And of course, they need your du'as. But where I guess I will be very clear about this, we're in more need of their du'as, the beneficiaries. And subhanAllah, so many of them, we saw, you know, 250 families raise their hands for the donors. I mean, we don't know the impact of that du'a. I mean, you know, I'm seeing clouds, and it reminds me of the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that when somebody who's oppressed raises their hands in du'a, Allah raises the du'a above the clouds, these clouds that we're seeing above us now, and He causes the heavens to open for them, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to the du'a and says, "Wa bi'izzati," by my honor, Allah speaking, by my honor, la ansurannak, I will most definitely help you. I will definitely, walau ba'da hin, even if it's after a little while. Meaning these du'as are du'a mustajab. So honestly, it was like a joy, like a real joy. And you remember when we were on a winter distribution in Pakistan a couple of years ago, or maybe 3 years ago now. And you know, when people raise their hands in du'a, this is really potent, really powerful, and much more powerful than when I'm raising my hands in the UK, with all due respect to me. You know, we just pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts their du'as on behalf of the donors have already given, but we urge people to come forward and continue to support the work, inshallah.
I mean, inshallah. But Allah guiding us. Again, we look forward to meeting with you again, going live with you again on the ground, inshallah. The donors, all the work that their donation are happy to see.
Inshallah, we might try to go from the Motherkind Clinic, inshallah. It'd be great to show you the impact. And you know, this project's been since 2013, and it's providing vital maternal health. So inshallah, next time we do a live, let's hope to do that from there, inshallah.